old friend. It's been a while since we've spoken to him, and he now covers Ole Miss for the Rebel Grove On 3 as well as SMU for On 3. Billy, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Anytime, guys. How are you?
Oh, we're doing well. It's nice to. It's good to see you again.
I wouldn't say see, but good to hear from you, Billy. It's been too long, brother.
I know. On the road, headed to Oxford right now, so quite the drive in.
Yeah, so I'll ask you, maybe helping our listeners get a better understanding of what to expect if they haven't seen Trinidad Chamblas play much this year. He's obviously been pretty impressive over the last two games, and it seems as if he's going to be the guy on Saturday. What have been your takeaways watching number 6 for Ole Miss?
I think just his comfort level at this level, which is kind of even just astounding. Truthfully, just the way he's jumped up from Division II to playing two SEC opponents and looking the way that he has, in particular against Arkansas. Austin Simmons went down against Kentucky, and Trinidad kind of finished things out there. But that Arkansas game, he was just awesome. And I think for me, when you look at a player like Trinidad Chamblas who makes that jump up from D2, you never know how the bright lights are going to be, or the crowd, or the pressure of being the quarterback of one of these SEC schools, and he's just handled it like it's kind of a dream. Everything's kind of surreal. He's having fun with it, and I think his play reflects that, because he's taken the role and he's said, I'm not going to turn this ball over. That's the big thing that Lane Kiffin has loved about him. You can tell by the way Lane brings that up and mentions it multiple times. It's usually the first thing he says is, hey, another clean game from Trinidad, taking care of the ball, most importantly. But, then he goes out there and he's able to extend plays, and he's able to pick up chunk plays on the ground. And, this Ole Miss wide receiver group is really talented, and he's been able to make big plays with those guys as well. I think he's finding a little bit more comfort with that group. And now, of course, this weekend is a major jump up as far as the competition level from what he's seen this season already. So that's going to be an adjustment, and we'll see how that balance of the battle between the Ole Miss passing attack and the LSU secondary that's very good fares. But so far he's just really played a game that I think is just so comfortable to him. His command of the offense, and people nationally probably haven't talked about this enough. He came in the summer. He wasn't here in spring practice, which makes it even more impressive for him to come in and just go about his work the right way, prioritize taking care of the football, and if things aren't there, tucking it. So he's explosive. His arm talent's there. This isn't somebody who comes from D2 and is just a depth piece. I mean, he's got kind of all the tools to make things happen, and he'll have to do that Saturday night, because this is going to be by far his toughest test.
I mean, we're talking about, obviously, Trinidad Chamblas, and from a outsider looking in and just a fan of college football, it feels like one of the biggest surprises in college football. Is that fair to say that even you covering Ole Miss, that you didn't see this happening in terms of his emergence onto the scene?
Yeah, I'm pretty conservative when it comes to these group of 5, D2, D3, FCS type of players making the jump up to the SEC level, let alone any Power 4 conference. And so I kind of had not reservations, I just more of an unknown about what he would actually look like when he got his opportunity, or if he got his opportunity. But Austin Simmons goes down, and of course that's a surprise piece of it. That was a guy that Lane Kiffin spent multiple years tutoring to take over this offense for Jackson Dart, and he graduated from high school at 15 or what have you, and enrolled at Ole Miss and learned to drive in Oxford. And it's just kind of a crazy story on Austin Simmons. And then Trinidad Chamblas comes in after leading Ferris State to a national championship, and it's just kind of peculiar that they would be able to even nab somebody like that who had that success and leaves a comfortable situation, and then he actually gets his opportunity. And I think he's one of the big surprise stories of college football. It's just to make that leap and to look as comfortable as he has is just really impressive. And so kudos to him. He deserves all the praise so far that he's getting, and he'll have a big opportunity Saturday night to earn even more.
And going into this game, outside of Chamblas and his play at the quarterback position, what are some of the strengths you've seen of this Ole Miss team, offensively, defensively, special teams, all three phases, that you see going into tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll knock out special teams real quick. Lucas Carniero, the kicker, is one of the best in the country. He was a Luke Rosa, I believe, semifinalist, maybe even finalist last year at Western Kentucky. They bring him in. He kicks the ball out of the back of the end zone. He makes long field goals. He's just really, really strong. So they're good in the kicking game. And then Oscar Bird is an Aussie who has come to campus. I believe he's like 27 years old. So living the dream there, and has punted the ball really well in his opportunities. And then Harrison Wallace is a Penn State transfer who I think is really going to break out. And as SEC play gets further and further along, people are going to realize how good he is, because he's in an offense that isn't archaic like Penn State's is. But he's come into Ole Miss, and after leading the Nittany Lions in receiving, he's looked really comfortable. But he's also been a punt return option, and he's looked like he's got close to breaking a couple. He broke one, and it got called back on a hold away from the play. That would have been for a touchdown. That was against Georgia State, but still looks dynamic back there, returning kicks and punts for them. So that special teams kind of area is pretty strong from what it seems like in the early goings of this season. But as far as the other strengths on this team, the defensive line is a really good group. Suntarian Perkins is a preseason All-American candidate. I would say he probably hasn't been as dominant as he was last year. So either teams are game planning for him differently, or he's being used maybe a little bit differently or whatnot. But he's still a talent, though. It reminds me, like, this season kind of reminds me of all the talking points around when Harold Perkins was moved to more of an off-ball linebacker, and now is in kind of the perfect position in Blake Baker's defense. But Suntarian Perkins is still somebody who's very, very talented. I think with Garrett Nussmeier being a pure pocket passer, that could help him have a little bit better of a game. He looked out of position on multiple occasions against Taylon Green and his running ability. But Suntarian Perkins is just one piece of the defensive line that's really talented. Cam Franklin is a former #1 player in Mississippi who just really has come on strong this season for them. And then William Eccles and Xavier Harris in the middle are just two massive problems for opposing defenses to kind of deal with. So they don't have as much depth probably there as they did last year, but the talent level is collectively very, very good on the defensive line. And then I really like their running back, Kewan Lacey. He's come in and not only run the ball well, but a big piece of the puzzle on Saturday is going to be pass protection and picking up a Whit Weeks, picking up a Harold Perkins. And so far he looks like he's up to the task and has done that really well. That was something against Arkansas that really showed up, his ability to pass protect and step up to the plate there. So Kewan Lacey has been that, every down back that they were most certainly missing last year when they were pretty one-dimensional. But he's been a big piece that they, bet a lot on in terms of bringing him in. And I think their wide receiver group is really good. I would argue it's better collectively than it was last year. They have Caden Lee, who's a explosive slot receiver who's started to get more involved with Trinidad at quarterback. And then I mentioned Harrison Wallace, but Deuce Alexander is another really, really good player who's emerging. And then Dazon Stribling was a 1,000-yard receiver last year for Oklahoma State, who's not broken out yet, but you do know that it's in there in some way. So it's a good group of wide receivers as well for Trinidad.
Covering LSU for as long as you have, I know that you've seen the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of an LSU football program that's gone from dominant defense to all of a sudden quarterback you to having no defense, and now it feels like the LSU of old is back. What's the overarching theme that you have of LSU seeing it from afar as opposed to covering it now?
Yeah, I think the defense is back to where it belongs among college football's best from what I've seen so far this year. I will say I do think that this is going to be the toughest test so far for this LSU defense, just with what seems like an offense that is actually moving the ball. Clemson and Florida both had a ton of issues, although they have a lot of talent on both of those teams too. So the defense for me is really what's been, the standout piece to me watching LSU. And I watched the Clemson game and watched pretty much every snap of the Florida game as well. And, those are defensive showings that, you can't discount when talking about this game. Like we were talking about it on the Bengal Tiger podcast with Shay and Maddie B this week, that if LSU wins this game, it seems like right now, probably lower scoring is the way to go. I'm sure you guys have talked at length about Brian Kelly talking about playing to win the game, of course, but it does seem like that is you play to win the game. I love that. I wish so badly I was in that press conference room. I was like, oh man, when you spend so much time somewhere for so many years, and then you see something viral like that happen, and you're like, wow, I remember the we coming, kind of thing from Orgeron back in the day, and all of those things. So
it was the 8 Mile. A lot of hostility. There's a lot of hostility in the room.
Yeah, you can cut the tension with maybe a spoon. I think that it was that was awesome. I thought Cobble handled it well, and at the same time, I understood what BK was doing too. He was standing up for his team, and I do think that is one thing that stands out to me at least. And you can talk about the offense and how it has struggled, and there are certain areas that they've got to improve. Like they need to find a way to run the ball, I think, on Saturday. Ole Miss's tempo is really, really important to their success. And so if they're going fast, you're going to have to find ways to give your defense a little bit of a break as well. But having Brian Kelly at the helm, and I said this when I was, covering the team day to day, it really helps your floor of your program. And having a coach that understands some of those situational things where, right or wrong, taking the foot off the gas or saying you're taking your foot off the gas to kind of help your team find a way to win the game, is an interesting way of approaching it. But he's experienced, won so many football games. And I feel like, at least from a roster standpoint, this is by far his most talented team. And that includes when, Jaden was, running around out there with Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors and all of them. So, it really makes this game, even more special to, cover too, having been on both sides of it. I mean, I remember the 2019 Ole Miss LSU game. That was a shootout, with LSU coming away with a win, and now, going to be in Oxford for what I think is going to be another classic in this rivalry.
Bigger portal get for Ole Miss, you or Sage Ryan?
Sage has been serviceable. He's a veteran guy, and he's somebody that Pete Golding knows very, very well from his days recruiting him. I mean, I remember that recruitment. That was a wild recruitment, wild world of the Ed Orgeron, Derek Panamsky days, getting that one across the finish line. So I see why they brought him in. He was somebody that, that secondary for Ole Miss is completely revamped. They needed veteran players. They needed bodies, and Sage was at least experienced and somebody that Pete Golding felt like, okay, give him a fresh start. And I know him, and we have a good relationship. Let's see how that goes. So he's been serviceable. I do think one thing to watch will be is if they get Jalen Braxton, their Arkansas transfer, back into the fold. I don't think he's played this year at all, unless they've kind of snuck him in here and there, but he was kind of highly touted and was playing a lot of safety in fall camp. I think if he plays this weekend, you'll see him play some safety and take some snaps away from Sage Ryan.
To close it out this morning.
So I don't know if that answered that question. I don't know. That makes me the bigger
portal. Hey, pal,
you
get my vote. If we could get you back in the portal, I'd take you.
I appreciate that. Thanks, buddy.
Well, Billy, to close it out this morning, what do you expect to see at 2:30 tomorrow? I was saying it earlier. I feel like the strengths of these teams kind of match up with LSU's defense, Ole Miss's offense, and then kind of the weaknesses of these teams match up on the flip side. What do you expect to see at 2:30 in Oxford?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth. I mean, I don't know if I picked against LSU maybe like once or twice when I was covering the team. So I kind of am consistent with that if there's a good team to cover. And I think Ole Miss is a good team to cover right now. I think for Ole Miss, their consistency running the ball and staying with it and having somebody that can produce is probably the X factor here. If they run the ball well and are able to mix things up and use their tempo and, piece together some longer drives even for them with their tempo, I think that's going to bode well for them. The thing that we just haven't really seen, I mean, sorry, BK, the ability to run the ball right now for LSU is a huge question. And this is a game that I think is going to require a commitment to running the ball, and it's going to be a war out there. And so I think that's probably the tipping point where I pick Ole Miss. I think it probably like a 31-27 type of game, but we'll see. This LSU defense is very, very, very good. So that'll be something, of course, to obviously watch as well.
Well, Billy, we appreciate you making some time for us this morning. It's been nice to hear your voice once again, and we'll talk to you again soon.
No, thanks for having me, guys. It was good being on with you.
Yep.
Good to see you again.
Thank you. There he is, Billy Embody, former member of the LSU beat, now obviously covering Ole Miss for the Rebel Grove